crowd, so I have to have a different approach. Why don't you talk about, just give me 30 seconds of introduction of your name and your educational background, and that's it. We'll start from our one and only guy. You're first. Right, your name and your educational background, please. Your name and your educational background.
My name is Diago.
Diago.
My major now is Russian studies.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. That's really good. Yeah. And what did you study before?
Economy, industrial economy.
At Hong Kong University?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Nice to meet you, Diago. Yeah.
And
you? And yourself?
My name is Gloria, and I study in Department of Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're not TESOL? Are you TESOL as well? Okay. Cool. Gloria, nice to meet you. How about yourself?
My name is Rosanna.
Rosanna.
So I'm studying politics at National Taiwan Normal University, and I'm studying Spanish as well of the master.
Okay. Well, it's one of the most useful languages in the world. Yeah. So, Rosanna, nice to meet you. And yourself?
And I'm Jamie, and I major in French and International Business, and bachelor now, and that's all.
Right. Okay. So, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. My name is Daisy. I'm Xiaoyo. From 33 years ago. Can you believe it? I graduated. I read business, and I majored in insurance. So I was from Baoxianxi, the one and only two. One is Tangkang, and one was Fengjia, I think. Yeah. So very specialized field. We didn't have to study much English, just like Dayi English. But I was always very interested in learning English. And from high school, I went to Jiayi Minzhong, and we had the heritage of English drama, speaking English. And I remember I directed Tom Sawyer in English, and I wrote my own script and directed the whole play. And that was really fun. For me, English was never a subject. From very early on, I don't know why, maybe because I used to hang out with Juanchun friends, and they loved their English, and a lot of Beatles, a lot of like Donny Marie Osmond, and I think before I learned ABC, I could sing English songs already. Yeah, how? I don't know. And I think it's the kind of language, I realized that this language is very easy to get into, yeah, because you hear English all the time. Because during those days in Taiwan, when I grew up in the 70s, all the movies, English-speaking movies, they were just original soundtracks. So you could hear English all the time. It's English with subtitles. So that really helped me with my bilingual sort of like training. So anyway, I never worked for insurance companies. I literally just launched into English. And one of the reasons was because I needed money. My family went downhill financially when I came to Danjiang. It was very sad. My dad lost his job as a ship engineer. My dad was from China. And my mom couldn't work. So my mom said, right, you're on your own. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to earn money? Those days, people didn't work at all. You just relied on your family. And then, 救国团, I still remember in Xinzhuang, they needed English teachers. That was the first time in 1981, and they started children's English course. My friend was reading English at Furen University, and they needed 2 teachers. So she and I. Can you believe it? And we went on to have a fantastic career, both in English teaching field. And I went on to become a school owner. I utilized my English. I used English to earn a lot of financial support for myself, and I helped my brother and sister as well. So that was really something sort of out of blue. So I'm going to tell you about a career in interpreting, and you definitely is heading towards the right path. Interpreting is definitely not just learning English and interpret in the booth. It's really a lot more to that. And today we are going to talk about public sectors. So I will make it really fun. And I don't think I have 2 hours, but we will streamline it, make it really concise, and I'm going to share my experience with you. I've been working as a public service interpreter, been to court. In fact, before I got on the flight, I was at a custody suite trying to help some drug dealing, anyway, these cases to do some interpreting, like interviews before they send the guy to the court. Unfortunately, I couldn't be at the court in London because I'm here, but it's a pleasure to share my experience with you. So I'm going to try, because I'm not very good at computer. Does it go? Yes! So, the types of interpreting, let's just pretend you don't know anything about interpreting. Yeah, and you're like me, launched into interpreting. So with interpreting, you can work for conference meetings between 2, 3 to 100 people, and listening to the speakers. Usually conference is with simultaneous. You work with your booth mates, 1 or 2, the other. You take turns. Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie with Nicole Kidman called Interpreter, I think? Yeah, something like that. Go and watch that. Part of it is actually filmed at the United Nations, and you will see everybody is sitting in all the various booths, and they are actually interpreting. Another one is commercial interpreting. Commercial interpreting. How I'd love to be a commercial interpreter. I love cosmetics and fashion. I'm quite shallow. And I remember when I started to do some commercial interpreting, I wrote to Yves Saint Laurent, and I wrote to Chanel, I wrote to Estee Lauder, Bobbi Brown, and I just wanted to interpret, to go to China or Taiwan with these commercial clients. And usually you don't do conference, you usually do business negotiation. Once I did interpret for Bobbi Brown, and I realized that it's so boring. It's all about pricing, it's all about negotiation. 拍桌子瞪眼睛, and I was like, oh, it's nothing to do with using their lipsticks and eyeliners, because it's all about commercial negotiation. So I think interpreting is something really broaden your horizon in such a way that every day is a different way. It's like having affairs every time. 不断地有外遇, because every time is so exciting and so new. Next one is today's subject is PSI, Public Service Interpreting. Of course, I don't really know other market. However, I think PSI in Europe, the most prominent market, most mature market is actually the UK. And there is a reason behind it. I'll explain that in a minute. So let's move on to the next one. Good. So modes of interpreting for PSI. Public Service Interpreting. Have you any idea what PSI is? Rosanna, do you know anything about PSI? Mm-hmm. Anything to do with the public? Yes. Could be, yeah? Communication. What kind of clients you might get? Immigrants, definitely. Yeah. Asylum seekers, maybe? Namin. Yeah. And what else? In the hospital?
Yes.
Yeah. And what else? Prison? Court? Especially the court. And police. Yeah. So you do cover a wide range. And that is why they need a lot of people who are bilingual. And often in Britain, you don't really need to go to the college or school. Of course, it helps you if you do the course, but a lot of it is actually self-study or online. You can go online. I think in Britain now, many people still want to be PSI interpreters, and you pay £99, and you can get a whole package. Everything is online. I was with one of the online company, and they basically just wanted you to do a distant sort of study to supervise students. Yeah, but I got so busy, so I didn't continue. So if you go online to Google it, you will see a lot of PSI and loads of information you can learn online. Often, you don't really do simultaneous because you don't have the booth. And you're not going to have the police talking to somebody and then he's wearing the booth, oh yeah. No. Usually PSI is consecutive interpreting. So with a consec, you take notes. Yeah. With conference, the note taking can be up to 10 minutes. If Hillary Clinton is talking for 10 minutes, are you going to stop her? Of course not. You're going to take note and thinking, oh, Hillary, shut up. And then you're trying to write down everything, practice your consec skill set and note-taking skills. But with the PSI, it's very easy. It's a little bit like the setup. I think that film was really nicely done, your last year's student, because it's very realistic. It is not that somebody speaks tops for 1 minute, and then you straight away, you use your memory. Usually I don't even take notes. I take notes only on names, locations, or numbers. I just use my memory. A couple of minutes is okay, it's easy for you guys. You then you usually translate, interpret word for word. If you know what I mean, it is not just to catch the meaning, you actually have to interpret without deviation, word for word. That is PSI. So, write down your numbers. 100万不要讲成100亿 yeah? Visual interpreting often is in the court. Often, especially tribunal court. Okay, in England, what's tribunal court? A lot of immigrants say this Chinese person wants his Chinese wife, or English person marry a Chinese girl wife and want to bring her to come to the UK to settle, but being refused by immigration, so they 在上诉, they appeal, so then they go to tribunal court. Often tribunal court is just like this, as big as this courtroom, yeah? Judge is up there, immigration solicitor usually is there, the right-hand side, I don't know why, and the client with the solicitor, legal rep, is there. You, interpreter, will be sitting at a table. I'm always to the right. This is the way they do. So once I went to somewhere in Ireland, I sat at the right. They thought I was the applicant because for some reason they sit on the other side. Otherwise, you sit here. Your client is here. Then you whisper. You do whisper interpreting. When the court, the judge, solicitors are talking. It's not that difficult. Sounds daunting, but it's okay. You do get the repetition because with the Chinese clients, often the cases are marriage, or maybe something about indefinite status application granted to asylum seekers. Not many cases, differences. So you learn the same knowledge. So it's repetition with the different clients. Yeah. Last, you've got side translation. Side translation happens at courts often. For example, I remember somebody produced something and just say, Madam Interpreter, can you just interpret this? And this is written all in Chinese. And you basically just interpret it because Chinese writing is so scribbling. So you need a native speaker of Chinese to be able to read Chinese writing. Hence, you need to be able to do side translation. Not very technical. And the last is telephone interpreting. I often will have my headset. I always ask PSI police or immigration officers call my mobile phone. Then I wear an apron, with a pocket, and I put my phone headset, and I cook, I cut, I water the flower, and I'll be doing interpreting. Because this is basically just a voice interpreting.
Sorry.
No, that wakes up everybody. Yeah, so with PSI, often you are doing consec, sometimes telephone interpreting. Do you think telephone interpreting is easier or more difficult?
More difficult.
Why? Why do you think it's more difficult?
Because you don't know how the situation, because we just understand how the meaning when they express their
True.
yeah.
True. You don't see the facial expression, do you? And it's so amazing, yeah? Say if I'm talking right here, and I'm not going to say that, and I'd like to speak to you, I'm not guilty. It is hard. So I think telephone interpreting is very hard. We should charge them twice of the fee.
But I have a good question because there are some conference call in
Yes.
some companies,
Yes.
so they use telephone interpreting.
Do they do telephone only, or do they do video links? Can you see all the parties?
Video link.
Video link. So you do see the parties, but you are you're doing virtual interpreting. You're not in the room with them. Yeah? So that's not telephone interpreting. Telephone interpreting is adopted by British immigration now. They don't invite interpreters to go to the airport, to go to the port. They don't. They basically just call you. Mrs. Dark, are you free? I said, yes. Can you do interpreting in 10 minutes? That's it. You are there and then. Oh, you can't? Don't worry. I'm going to call the next one. So they basically pull out a list of NRPSI listed interpreters, and then they phone. And my name is Shen Xiujuan, S, yeah? But my husband is Dark, and I register Daisy Dark. One of the reasons, not just because my husband would like me to carry his name, is because the stupid immigration officers always start from A. So if your name is Wu, W, U, you never get a phone call. I'm D, so often I get a phone call. That's as stupid, as simple as that. So you step ahead of everybody. Yeah, that's interesting. So now, I know it's all very, very interesting. Next, this is me. It's not British Airways. Have I told you I'm a British Airways flight attendant? Yeah. So I'm a 老空姐. I've been working as a flight attendant for 21 years. I'm not going to bore you with my experience of how I became a cabin crew. However, at the age of 34 in 1996, I was in England and I went for 3 airlines and I got in every airline. I'm only 5'2", 157 centimeters tall or short, and I was old, but I got in. And mainly it's because of my personality and my language pairs, English and Chinese. So I got in. I understand it's mainly because of my language skill set. So here, I'm born and educated in Taiwan. I'm very, very honored to be Taiwanese. I think we are 最美的风景 is Taiwanese. And I'm telling you, fantastic people. I don't know how nice you are. And I went to Jiayi High School and I was in Changkang. Then, at the age of 53, I went back to the university, not just Manchester University, the University of Manchester, ranking very high in the world. And I went back to study MAKINT, master degree in conference interpreting. It was very hard initially because every time I walked into the classroom, people thought I was the lecturer. Because I'm so much older. However, I had such a good time. I did a part-time study. Instead of a 1-year course, I spread it out in 2 years. And that was really, really interesting. The reason I went back is because with my TPSI qualification, I wasn't qualified to work for the United Nations or the EU. Hence, I realized that I needed a master degree. So I thought, I don't want to be a cabin crew flight attendant forever. I'm getting older. Why not move on to something else? And that's why I applied for only Manchester. I didn't even apply for Leeds. Andrew is from Leeds, yeah. I didn't even go to Bath. I don't think I'm good enough to go to Bath anyway. And I was a bit nervous, thinking, didn't even major in English, but they took me on. I passed all the oral tests. And I did well. I got my merit. So I finished my degree last year. I got my certificate and my degree last year in December. So I am a qualified conference interpreter. That just shows you, you can go back to tell your parents, I'm sure they are all younger than me. It's never too late to go back to university. And I was never late. So I used to teach English and all that, you know that, let's not dwell on that. And English language immersion is just something some fancy words. My husband said, if you put that in, people will think you are really good at English. It's my interpreting career that I really benefit from. Graduation, and the right hand side was my first conference job last year in October, actually, after my dissertation. I finished my dissertation on the 6th of September. I got a phone call from the Chamber of Greater Manchester. There were about 50 delegates from China, very high spec, and they came to observe, to listen to the opportunities of investing in British infrastructure, like Konggang Cheng, like Airport City, all that, yeah. So I interpreted for that conference. You can see you're just sitting in a little booth with your coffee. Very interesting. And I remember I came out and I was with a colleague who's about 20 years younger than me from Bath. We would work very well. I came out and the delegations from China just went, 翻译阿姨. I said, 翻译姐姐就好了，大姐。Okay. Very experienced. 很有经验您是哪里人啊？Guess. Why don't you guess? 猜猜看吧啊。北京不像，河北吗？河南吗？湖南？江苏？再往南，再往南。广东不像，福建也不像。香港吗？不是。海南岛 ？No， 往北。No。Japanese 都不是啦，我是台湾人。They were so surprised. And I think one of the things I'm very proud of my Taiwanese heritage is I neutralize my accent. 我回来台湾，我们可以给它嗲一点啊，比较 relax， 不用把母音都发得很圆。But when you work with your Chinese clients, do be careful with your 是后面，不是后面。很好，不是很好。对，不是对。Okay, so I think you neutralize your own, alter your own accent to fit in different market. You'll go far. Now, so far, no questions? Don't feel sleepy yet? Okay. We're going to talk about PSI. This is stupid because I'm not very good with the computer. So I tried to give you the sort of components. However, you can go on PSI website, www, yeah, and you search PSI, it'll come up, bam, bam, bam. This is the first page, on the search engine. And the public sector, you do cover, including in the homework video, you see more like immigration sector, but in fact, you cover mainly police and court in England. I don't do probation. Do you know why? Antonio? Do you know why I don't do probation? 保释. There's no money in it. Simple as that. They pay you very little money now. And it's no point for me to drive for 3 hours to go to Glasgow in Scotland, and they only pay me, I don't know, £60. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a charity. I think it's an insult. However, with others, courts and others, police especially, they pay the best. I take up this kind of assignments. I don't do medical now. It's because it's so random. 有一次我进去做痔疮，插管 ，a guy. I hate it. It was the most gory scene. A lady like myself could see. Yes. Did you do it?
Don't worry. 我做过前列腺。
No. Ouch. Ouch.
前列
That
腺
hurts.
切片。
There we go then, Angie. Now you understand. I love like I don't know, cosmetic surgery or anyway, nothing too gory. it is you are very important as a medical interpreter. I remember I had to interpret to break news to a few patients that unfortunately the result is you've got breast cancer. And that is very difficult to break the news. And the doctor is just, unfortunately you've got breast cancer. And you just think, oh, can you just break it in a little bit more gentle, you know? And it's very harsh. So with the medical, you can use your wording to word it in a more subtle way, to sort of ease your client's emotion. You are allowed to. So with the medical, I enjoyed it. However, I just don't think I'm as qualified. I just don't want to have to look at so many people's bottoms, back or front. They are not bracket, are they? Housing, not many in PSI. Immigration, a lot of immigration. One of the reasons I become a PSI or DPSI qualified interpreter was because when I was applying for my British passport in year, I don't know, 1999, on the website, on the Home Office, yeah, 内政部, it was a lot of bang, bang, do you speak another language? Do you speak Chinese? Do you speak Urdu? Do you speak so and so, so and so? And I was like, somebody's telling me, you know, so I clicked onto it, and it was, do you speak another language? Is it Chinese? Is it these languages? Would you like to become a interpreter? Oh yes, I love it. Just like my husband said, Daisy, you love talking. People are paying you to talk. You should 天生的 interpreter. Yeah. 坠入苦海. Anyway, so I went on, and I went for an interview. Within half an hour, I got the job. And I was like, am I an interpreter already? Yeah. We will train you. And I was like, great, I'm going to be trained. I love going back to the school. I was given a manual, this thick. Here we go. You start tomorrow. So I went home to look at. And then I started to work as an interpreter almost every day. I got case assignment in those days. So I was talking to the last class, why did they need so many Chinese interpreters? Yeah, in year 99, 2000 onwards until about 2010. Do you know why? Imagine, in 1999, 2000, why were there so many Chinese speakers needed in the UK?
Because they got more money.
They got more money. Well, UK was very rich, part of it, yeah. But why were there so many Chinese speakers? Do you think they were from Taiwan? China, Chinese. But it was a very polarized society, 两极化. Many poor Chinese, coastal Chinese people, especially from Fujian, they didn't have the economy, but they wanted to make money. In the past, I think, they became pirates. But in the modern days, they were persuaded by these human traffickers called snakehead, 人蛇, 蛇头. They basically persuaded these people to pay them some money, and they said you can go to the UK, Britain, and pretend you're an asylum seeker, and then you will stay there. Especially for the girls, like you. I think Angie look about 12. Anyway, if you look youngish, which we do look young to the British eye, and they will go, you can become a minor. If you enter the country illegally, claim asylum, you are a minor, you go into the social care system, and you'll be given money, you'll be supported, you will be sent to foster families or homes for young people until you're 21. You'll be supported by this system. So many girls, if they are borderline to 20, 21, they look young, they just say, I'm 16, I'm 17. And they believe you, because you do look like 16 and 17. I remember I was in Cambridge, I went to the bar to meet my husband, I was 35. And I was going to enter the pub, and the bouncer, you know, 保镖, just went, wait a minute. And I was like, yes? Why are you still out? It's 9 o'clock in the evening. I was like, pardon? He said, where are your parents? Excuse me? He went, come on, young girl, you don't come around at 9 o'clock in the evening, especially in the pub. And I was like, I'm 35, I'm older than you. No way. Passport. Bye. So we do look young, I mean so young to them, yeah. So sometimes they do age assessment and they need interpreters and they check their teeth and everything. So that is quite fun as well. So those days, the Home Office, they just needed so many Chinese interpreters and there weren't many Mandarin speakers. So whoever they can scoop, hence the notice and everything, hence they trained you very quickly. In fact, I didn't have any training. I learned everything on the job. I literally just launched in. Sometimes I didn't know certain terms, but you always ask your immigration officer, your handsome immigration officer, pretty immigration officer, and say, can you just elaborate on that term? So they explain to you. So it was quite a smooth transition for me to move on to public service interpreting. And I thought, oh Daisy, you can't always just try to milk it. You need a qualification. So I was pregnant in 2007. Maybe you can do the math. I was born in 1962. So how old do you think I was when I was pregnant? 45. 老妈妈. So I thought I couldn't fly anymore. As a cabin crew, you're not allowed to fly. So I was grounded straight away. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm so bored. I was like very energetic. Every day I ate about 5 donuts. I loved my food. I put on so much weight. And I thought I need to do something. And then I thought I could do a DPSI. And then I talked to some colleagues, where should I go and do the course? And I was willing to pay some money and to do the course. And they just went, you don't need to. Here is my distant learning. So somebody gave me another whole bundle of information. And that's how I learned my DPSI. How I went, paid £600, and I did my exams. So you have 6 criteria. You can't see it, it doesn't matter. There are 6 criteria for you to take: simultaneous, Chinese to English, English to Chinese; consecutive, Chinese to English, English to Chinese; and sight but written translation. Again, Chinese to English, English to Chinese. And I had the easiest exams that you could really have. I think my English to Chinese was about year term. I was like, it's nothing to do with English law. But it was, I think they were just trying to bring in as many. I think they were just assessing my pronunciation, how my spoken English and Chinese was, rather than you really have to pass your skill set exams. So anyway, overall, finally, I passed my exam and I qualified as a DPSI interpreter. Hence, so I didn't do any study, much. Yeah. Actually, saying that, I did do some studying. I think I didn't feel I was confident in simultaneous interpreting. Have you guys done simultaneous yet? Not yet. Not yet, yeah? Okay. It is hard. You're bilingual. Your English, Chinese are both very good. It doesn't mean you can be a good interpreter. So I realized that. So I actually asked a colleague who's an interpreter. So he said, Daisy, watch news. But only very basic news, just one headline. So that day, whatever happened, Trump sacked Tillerson. So that would be the highlight of the day. So I watch it from 8 o'clock, headline news, watch it. And then at 9 o'clock, I read the papers, and then I try to do side translation. And then on the third time, in England, they play the news. Is it the same in Taiwan now? On the hour, 24 hours, you get news reports. And that's very good for interpreting training. So I basically get to know my content, the news, every word, I know it very well. Then I started to listen and I interpret. And then I record myself. I think I practiced for about 2 months, day in, day out, 2 months. And I became really, really, really good at it for my standard. And that's how I passed my exam. Now you've got to go on to National Register. They charge you a lot of money again. But it's really good to be registered with them, because sometimes when a company, they need a interpreter, the client will just go on this website. In fact, later you've got your iPhone, if you key in NRPSI, it'll come out. Yeah, and then this is where the government recognize you. I don't know if you know, this is actually recognized as a first degree. It's an undergraduate degree level of qualification. So it is a very persuasive, very useful degree qualification. And independent examinations, basically is the exam I took actually. And you pay member fees. I think the clients need to pay as well as interpreters. In fact, I dropped out because I didn't feel they brought me a lot of business. However, I started to go back again because I realized that it is still a very, very professional credential. This is my perm hair day. So you can see where you have your NRPSI card. You know, that's your number, and this is 2012 when I joined Quail. And you basically, these are the credit. And the last one, what does it say? Can you read? Accessibility? Do you know what that means? What do you think? Have a guess? Huh? In a way, yes. Yes, in a way, close. Is everybody who went online can call you. I remember once, 3 o'clock in the morning, phoned me from Miami court. So, Mrs. Dark, yes, American accent. I'm the judge at the county court of Miami. Are you free at the moment? 3 o'clock in the morning, I thought, should I say yes or no? But I'm so curious, I'm so nosy. Yes, of course, I'm free. So it was a court case about human trafficking again. And the accused kept saying he just didn't understand Mandarin. He didn't understand Cantonese. He didn't understand this and that. And he said he could understand Fujianese, which is what? Taiwanese. Yeah. So, you speak Taiwanese, Fujianese? I said, yeah, what kind of Fujian dialect? Yeah, Minnan, So, okay, madam, we got your name from NRPSI. Yeah, and you usually know how much they pay you. So, we would like to invite you to be our interpreter. So, they went through, you know, your name, everything, and I asked the guy in Taiwanese, and he couldn't understand anything. So I said to the judge, I don't think he understood me. The judge just went, this is the 4th time he is trying to delay the whole thing again. I am not adjourning my court. She was such a vicious woman. So she said, I'm not adjourning it. You have to figure out the language you're going to use, or I'll put you in jail. So this Chinese guy actually said, 那就说普通话好了啦. So I got a job. So it was very interesting. Anybody can call you worldwide, and they call you from abroad. I remember once I was called by an Australian authority at the airport. Somebody, Taiwanese, I think, trying to bring in 甘草. And they thought that was like some drugs. And he kept saying, 不是啦,口浓痛, whatever. So they actually hired over the phone an interpreter. And that was really good because I earned quite a lot of money from that. You know, so DPSI, I think is something very interesting. You do see a lot of different sides, different scenarios. Every day is a different day. So here, if you look at the bottom one, WITS, okay, you can see I'm just showing you all my business account, my horrible photos. Apart from the top one is a like a professionally done photo, because I realized that every time I'm always like the suspect being shot face front and I look awful. So I decided I would take something different. Yeah. So the bottom one is actually the Welsh police. Can you see my language combination? What is it? Hokkien. What's Hokkien? I was the only 2 Fujian Hokkien interpreters. The other one was a Singaporean. That is why that court from Miami called me, I think. Yeah. But this is actually with the Welsh police. Welsh police had, not anymore, but they had their own system. And I was on their interpreter's page. I mean, I'm on every list. People love lists, and because I'm qualified, so I'm always put on their database to look. I think they want to look like they've got a vast selection of qualified interpreters. So I was on it. And the top one, which is, I'm going to talk about it now. In Britain, and Angie, when you were there, I don't know if it was already outsourced, PSI?
Yeah.
Was it? Which agency was it that you worked with? Capita, yeah? Yeah, it was Capita. The worst company in the world. Anyway, historically, as a DPSI qualified interpreter, the court, the police, probation, social workers, they can all use the same list on NRPSI, which we just mentioned, and they'll call you follow alphabetical. So it's from A, B, C, and I'm D, yeah? So often I got phone calls from them. And they pay you well. In the past, they pay you well. If you show up at the court at 9:30 in the morning, as soon as you show up, they pay you for the whole morning. And then the lunch break usually is about half an hour. But the court, of course, they take about 2 hours. Anyway, they sort of milk the whole thing. And they pay you for the lunch hour. Then you move on to the afternoon. Often they want to wrap it up very quickly in the afternoon. So again, you step in the court after 1:30, you get paid for the whole afternoon. It's a very juicy job. It was very juicy. We were all very laughing all the way to the bank. But 春节啊, because of the whole cost cutting, every country, yeah, everybody's losing money. And then Britain wanted to cut a lot of costs, and they started from the public sector interpreters. They cut a lot of immigration officers, police, and social workers, but they cut interpreters as well. Hence, we move on to so-called outsourced to agency outsourcing. So when Angie was in Britain, they used Capita. It's the worst company you can get, and they really cut the interpreter's pay, which is very sad. And they usually give you tiers. I'm a qualified interpreter, I'm tier 1. Oh, you'll get this higher pay. Tier 2 interpreters means you can't do written translation. You're just not good enough, you haven't passed your test. Tier 3, basically, you can speak 2 languages. Anybody can be there if they want to hire you. So you would think, I'm qualified, yeah? They should hire me. No. Every time when there's a case published on the website, they always go tier 2. Why? Because if you go to the court and there's nothing to do with the written translation, they think we don't have to hire expensive tier 1. So I was sitting there, no jobs anymore. It's sad, but that's how they work around it. And they pay you by hourly rate. They work it to the second. If you're there from 9:30 to 10:35, 45 seconds, they will pay you 100 whatever minutes and seconds. So they pay you, they cut it to the bone. Basically, they cut everything. So the PSI market has been drastically changing and still changing. At the moment, it's not PSI, it's not Capita anymore. The contract's been split, and at the moment, it's the big word. The reason I'm putting up that card for your information is not because that photo is so gorgeous. It's because I want to tell you about the big word. The big word, if you go online again, if you are interested in doing interpreting, I think you should look at agencies. For example, the big word. And they will have telephone interviews, interpreting, and all sort of jobs, and they cover many countries. I'm not saying they pay you very well. However, if you need experience, I think it is a good starting point. So if you look at the big word to see what kind of jobs they are offering, and it's interesting. Maybe nowadays you use any online telephone calls, it's free. So people will call you, maybe they'll call you from Honolulu. Maybe they'll call you from Iceland. You know, you never know. So I think it's interesting to look at worldwide international agencies. So public sector, can I just quickly run through, or somebody going to read it for me? Let me have a break. Where's my coffee? Have I checked it?
Yeah.
It's here, yeah. Shall we have the only boy then? Can you see? Types of crime covered.
Yeah.
You read it.
Oh,
Can you see?
yes.
Offenses.
Offenses against the person,
Uh-huh.
public order,
Mm-hmm.
shots,
Drugs. Uh-huh.
victims of crime.
Victims of crime. Have you ever been abroad?
Yeah.
Have you ever been pickpocketed?
Yeah.
钱包有没有掉过？
Kind of.
Just cell phone.
Cell phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you report to the police?
Yeah.
So you are the victim. Do you need an interpreter?
Yes.
If you go to Japan, if you go to Korea,
Yes.
if you go to India,
I will Czech Republic.
did it really happen to you?
It happened. I went to the police and police cannot speak English. They don't need to learn. So I went there and I cannot communicate with the police.
No.
And he just said no, no way. I don't know, no.
Ridiculous, shameless, and that's it.
And he says it's my fault.
And he said
You're
it's your
too
fault.
stupid, right? Yeah.
Gosh, don't go to Czech Republic.
Yeah.
I had a very funny story in Czech Republic as well, but I don't know if I have time to cover it. I have so many stories. Can you invite me back again, please? Yeah, I'll come back next month. Yeah. So, who's going to read the police support and legal representation? Volunteer?
Cautions and attributes.
Uh-huh.
Search personal and primers.
Premises, yeah?
Premises.
Mm-hmm.
Solicitor support.
So this is a support, yeah. Basically, this is all about the court system in Britain, yeah. Do you think the British court system is the same as Taiwanese system?
Yeah.
Not at all. Do you know the differences? I think British system is more like custom custom law. So basically anything with the history. There's a history, the result, the conviction is this, then all the cases afterwards are exactly identical to this case. They will always quote this. For example, Smith versus Collins, and the result was sentence Smith to 2 years. They will then always quote the case and then negotiate with the judge how they should be sentenced. This is called custom law. I think in Taiwan we do it differently. We have 六法全书啊，五权全书，六法全书. Yeah, I think it is like different. And China is like us. I think they do the same. No?
Maybe customer rights.
Mm-hmm. Your applicants or
There's
the
a
suspect.
association
Mhm.
fight for customer right now.
Oh, is it
消保法.
That's okay. So it's custom. That's true. So that's civil. 那个是民法哈. Right. So here, don't worry about all this nitty-gritties because basically anything that's to do with the law, even marriage, could it be law? If you are married to your boyfriend who is Canadian, you want to immigrate to Canada, do you need to go to the court sometimes? You probably do. If you apply for a spouse visa, but the Home Office refuses you, you're going to take them to the court. You're not going to say, oh, Johnny, come, reunite with me. Bye. Let me find another husband. No, you fight for it. And that is to do with the law, marriage law or whatever. So everything actually is to do with the law. So you usually are there to practice, to help, just like in a scenario. Here is something, when somebody has been arrested and they are taken to the police station, I love British, yeah? They always give a very good term. 你被带到拘留所啊, they call it custody suite 套房. 拘留套房 directly translate. So you are ushered, taken to the custody suite and you're given a room and everything, yeah? And then you are always, before you are interviewed by the police, you'll be read caution. Do you know what caution? Do you know what cautions is? Caution? I need 2 volunteers. Oh, so difficult to choose out of 4 people. Can I have 2 volunteers? Right. Should I volunteer you? Sure. And you are going to be the interpreter.
Oh,
Should I not test your English? I'll let you read. I'll let you try. Do you want to try it without this? No, I'll let you.
without us?
I think it's better you use it because it's quite hard. Right. Now you, so somebody has been arrested. Yeah. Human trafficking. Okay. You are the body. So you're going to read to this accused, the
read.
suspect. Yeah.
Read all the things.
That's right. Yeah. Break it wherever you think you want to break, and your interpreter is here. Ready? Steady. Yeah. You have to break it into 2 or 3 parts. Try. Don't worry about making mistakes. To your client. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, UK police caution, you do not have to say anything, but it may have your defense if you do not mention where question something which you later really on in court.
Okay. Stop there. Are you going to interpret in Chinese? In Chinese.
您可以保持沉默。
大声一点。
您可以保持沉默，但是在被质询时，如果您未提及您未提及您的状况，
OK.
可能会在您出庭时影响您的权益，也会成为呈堂证供。
Okay. She hasn't finished yet.
好，
Continue.
Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
Okay. Fantastic. Do you get what it means? You do? Okay. Most Chinese are suspects. 完全是听不懂. Either you speak in English or you translate it into Chinese. They still go, 小米什么？欢迎大姐啊，翻译阿姨叫大姐，翻译大姐讲什么都听不懂。他以为他讲都听不懂，他就没罪。Okay? So usually the police will explain. Alright? So the way I do it, it depends on the police officer. Some police officers are like kindergarten teachers. They will break it down and they will explain to the suspect. Yeah? So usually I will wait. But the way I break it, because it's quite a long, windy sentence. Yeah? You do not have to say anything. 你不用说什么话，或者你不用回答。Depends on the person's educational system or how you feel that day. But it may harm your defense. I will stop it here. 但是呢，你可能会处在不利的状态之下。If you do not mention when questioned something. 如果人家问你话的时候，你故意不回答。Yeah. Which you later rely on in court. 等到你去开庭的时候，你才在那边解释。Anything you do say may be given in evidence. 那你解释了，然后你问的时候你不解释，你等到开庭你再解释另外一套，那个还是会成为你的证词哦。可是如果你现在问问题的时候，你就回答，这个就是你的证据了，你的口证，你的口供。It's very scary for Chinese people to hear 口供。Communist 口供 scary, yeah. Okay, it's a police state, so basically. So this is one of the toughest interpretation you can do as a police interpreter. So usually I don't really bother. I just listen to, I have a word with the police. I said, even I translated directly from this, yeah, reading from this, nobody has any idea. I said, use plain English and I'm going to interpret for you. So it's easier. So the situation is, when I ask you questions, you don't need to answer. 所以警察问你问题的时候，你不用回答。However, 但是 if I ask you a question and you don't answer now, 现在问你问题啊，你绝口不提。And in the future, when you go to the court asks you the same questions. 他们在庭上问你同样的问题 ，and you decide to answer. 你那个时候才在讲，这个有点说谎。陪审团 官就会觉得你为什么当时候要隐瞒？既然你是无辜的 ，Yeah, so you use plain language, English or Chinese, and then you explain to people, and that is the way a public service interpreter's role really should be. You are the mediator. It's no point you look at your clients and 笨死了，听不懂福建来的。It's no point because at the end of the day, this person needs you to mediate between you and the police, and maybe even to be sent to the court. Okay. So, public order. Do you think spitting, two people quarreling, and then 吐口水, do you think that is public disorder, a public order offense? Yeah, definitely. Or like, 小中国人，小黄种人，滚出我们英国 ，get out of Britain, you little yellow midget. Racial, and that is all offense, criminal offense, 刑事 not just civil. It is that serious. So, they always need interpreters. The last one, solicitor support. You know what solicitors are, yeah? 律师，律师不是只是代书，律师。Anything to do with going to the court. They are lawyers, they are barristers, they are solicitors. And solicitor support often is you have to go to prison with them. So I've seen all the big prisons in the whole United Kingdom. I've been to about 10. Some of them are located in quite nice area, countryside, you know. And it's nice, you know, I drive and go to different, but usually, they are usually highly, very strict, you know, highly protected, and you go through there, you are only literally allowed a piece of paper and a pen. Everything else, you have to give up and leave it everywhere, somewhere in a safe. So going to the prison is quite a sad occasions. However, I think when you go to the court and police, you should see the end. Finally, what happened to the clients. So often, if I need to go to the prison, not many people like going to the prison because it's quite depressing. I quite like to go because I think when I go there, I realize that I'm a lucky person. I'm very lucky. I don't have to be locked up in a small little room and eat very horrible British food. British food is horrible. Prison food is even worse. So there's nothing worse than that. So this is kind of like scenarios. I'm not going to go through details with you, yeah. But this is usually you will. Every day is a different day. I love it. Every time I get a phone call and you can hear the accent from Manchester. Which police? Manchester, Longside police station. In Longside, you know they always catch some like illegal immigrants working in the kitchen at a Chinese restaurant. This is 9 out of 10. Yeah, and for me it's easy because I like going to Manchester because after the police interview 4 or 5 hours, I just go and have some dim sum in one of the Manchester's like a Chinese restaurant. Yeah, because I live in the countryside. I live about 40 miles away to the countryside, to the west, to Manchester. I don't really go to the cities much, cities as in Birmingham, Liverpool, or Manchester, because I'm old. I like to be in the countryside. Right. So far, how much time have I got left? Oh my goodness.
Maybe 10 minutes. And
Only? Really?
Oh,
No.
we still have half an hour.
Okay, hold on. Half an hour? I do. Because I want to tell you about magistrate and the Crown Court. In England, you go to the court, you have magistrates, you have county court, and you have Crown Court. So 有点像地方，然后呢，高等，然后最高，被打打。In fact, county and crown in England are the same. They usually only have 2, magistrate 地方司 and 高等法院。County 比较少提到。Yeah. So you have trial, say you were caught, human trafficking, after the caution, after asking you a question, interview, they decided you are guilty. So we're going to prosecute you. So you'll be sent to prison, waiting to go to the court, and then we will find interpreters, different interpreters usually, for the court hearing. And you always, always, always go to magistrate court first. Magistrate, 地方司. Everything always go to magistrate, just like the British medical system. Here, if you think 我的腰很痛, you go to 内科. If you have whatever eye issue, you go to, I don't know, eye doctor. You self-diagnose, yeah? In Britain, it's totally different. You go to a general practice. General practice means 家庭医师. A lot of people translated it wrong, yeah? Not family doctor. Usually it's general practice. So the general practice will listen to your symptoms and then guide you which specialist you should go to. And this is the same as magistrate. Either it's a murder case, either it's just drinking, driving, or speeding. You all will go to magistrate. And then the judge, which is a non-paid volunteer work. Anybody can be a magistrate judge, but you need to be recommended. I'm going to recommend my husband, I think, because he's going to retire soon. He's going to be so bored at home. So I said, I'll nominate you, and you can get 100 people to petition, to sign, signature, yeah, to sign to recommend him, and then he can go through the selection procedure. So you go to magistrate. Usually magistrate is very easy, yeah. What's your name? What is your address? You've been accused of this offense. Do you plead guilty or not guilty? So usually you don't really have to speak much. Sometimes the judge or the clerk will confirm. You only need to say yes or no. Are you Danny Chen? Yes. Do you live in 13 Earl Court, London? Yes. You've been accused of theft, felony or whatever. Do you plead guilty or not guilty? Not guilty. Okay, that's it. Finished. You get paid your pay and then adjourn. Usually, if you plead not guilty, they still will finish it and then open another court. Depends on how serious, how complicated the court case is. So it's a lot of wasting time, a lot of waiting time with the UK court system. I don't know about the Chinese system. The UK system is a lot of waiting. So usually say it's a serious offense, and they decided we cannot deal with this case in magistrate court. So we will send the whole case, say murder. I'm going to tell you about a murder case which is not very nice. Are you okay? Can you listen to some gory, scary case? For Angie, I'm not going to tell them about the same case. So basically, it's a serious crime. We're going to move the whole thing to the Crown Court and the case adjourned. Oh, by the way, Madam Interpreter, can you come to the next court? And Madam Interpreter, me, was saying, okay, which day? 3/8节,母亲节, no, not free. So they usually try to alter the time to adjust, to accommodate you, because you are the most important person. 其实还蛮受尊敬的，快买的咯 Madam Interpreter. And it's quite nice, yeah, quite respected. So, usually as an interpreter, we don't like to take the cases to go to the Crown Court. Why?
Difficult to interpret it?
Exactly. Pressure. The Crown Court is scary. So it is hard to interpret. And you get the same pay. If you go to the magistrate court, 你有偷人家的 iPhone 吗？有 Okay. Yeah. You get the same pay. Why do you want to go to the Crown Court? I do. And often my colleagues will go, Daisy, next week there's a Crown Court case. You go for me. I said, okay. Yeah, because they don't like to do it. They rather go to immigration, they rather just go to the police custody suite, sit there, drink coffee and ask some questions, kill 5-6 hours. They hate going to the Crown Court because everybody's watching you. And it's worrying, it's scary, it's daunting. You know what, the first time I stood on the platform at the court, at the Crown Court, even I wasn't the guilty part, I was like this, 好紧张哦. because it is such a sin you've never seen during, never in your lifetime. How many people will be present at the Crown Court? Not really. But I love it. I love the challenge because it's a lot of gossip. I remember once I got this case, which is actually only last year. Interesting. Basically, the police said, Daisy, we need somebody who's very compassionate. It's for a Chinese couple. I said, I'm very compassionate. Yes. It's a murder case. Murder? What do you think you will see at the court? If you go to the Crown Court, murder case, what you need to see? When they present the evidence.
One is, I don't know, someone is crying. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah. The family members crying, very emotional. What else do you think they're going to present? Angry, that's emotional part, absolutely. You could be impartial. I think it's to see the photos.
Oh, see the photos. Everyone can see them
Yes.
from the like a PowerPoint.
Not nice. And as an interpreter, I really think you need to have the stomach for it, literally the stomach for it. Because you're looking at it and they go, evidence 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, this is the body part, this is from the left, and they zoom in. It's like, the worst is, the accused is next to you, the suspect. You're sitting in a glass room, yeah, sitting there, and usually they have windows, like glass windows, like panels, zigzag, so you could still hear. Often we get a headset, yeah, some modern chords. So you interpret, and I will have to interpret everything. 1之1证据头部，1之2耳朵，1之3溃烂的舌头，1之4我跟你讲啊，一次是看3小时的，你看到这个就麻痹了。Yeah. Anyhow, and your client could be the murderer. 他还很友善，还小小的一只。You know, it's the most horrific crime committed by the smallest, nicest person. Smaller than me, and smiley, fat teeth, very friendly. 翻译小姐你好。And yet he's probably the murderer. So I think, as a PSI interpreter, you play so many roles, the emotions, and this is where you become professional. How do you not cry with the victims' families? You know, it is a lot of emotions to handle. And can you handle it? You can. When you are put in the spot for some reason, you will handle it. You're not going to say, no, because you're the only person who's there. You become professional. Yeah, so this murder case was horrendous. It was a guy, and I think that a Chinese guy, and they were all like only child, 独生子女. So the family was supportive financially. So they gave him a lot of money to buy 3 flats, apartments in Manchester. And he loved gambling. And I think when he went gambling, he was tailgated by some bad people. I don't think the suspect was the only murderer, because he's so tiny. Saying that, who knows, maybe he's got kung fu, I don't know. But he was the only one who's been caught because of the CCTV evidence. However, this guy, this murderer, or the suspect, killed the guy, drugged him, I think, and then beheaded him, and then chopped him, boiled him, put in a suitcase, and dumped him in the river. And it was a news, because nobody was so disfigured and whatever. And it was missing person, who's this guy? Who's this 无头人士, I remember, in the suitcase in Manchester. Who's this? In the end, it was the mother, the victim's mom. Just haven't heard from the son for about a month. And usually they use WeChat every day. And the last WeChat message she got was so unlike him. A bit like, mommy, I miss you and I love you forever. This is definitely not done by him. So the mother realized that the son's phone had been stolen or repossessed by somebody else. They then reported, with a friend's help and embassy's help, to report to the police. And then they got the CCTVs out, and they identified with the DNA, and they realized that the victim was this old couple's son. So they came over. So I was there to help them through the court. I'll tell you what, when people are so upset, they never cried. They were like this, just shocked. They were like really, really couldn't believe it. Yeah. So this is horrendous, and hence many people don't want to take crown court cases. I do it is because I found I'm helping people. I'm there with my language skill set, and I am doing something to help this family. The only thing I really don't like doing, apart from medical surgery and all that, is child abuse or rape. I can't cope with those gory vocabulary and all that. So you do have your likings and dislikes, and it's fine. When they phone you, would you like to do this case? You can always ask, what kind of case is this? Yeah, and you can choose which case you work for. But I encourage people, if you get a chance, do work with also cases, because it does make you appreciate, what kind of good life you have. And seriously, because there are so many sad cases and unfortunate people in the world. Yeah. Right, let's see, what else? Probation, I don't do probation because they don't pay very well. However, probation is always a very short case, 10 minutes. Can you afford this money? Anybody going to be the compensatory? Are you going to stay with this person and this address? Okay, yes or no, that's it. Yeah, usually. Local government, child support, a couple divorced, the husband wouldn't pay the maintenance fees, the wife decided to take the husband to the court. Boring. I hate family court is because often they are from China. And people don't respect each other. Sometimes they stood up and just back down. They get very physical, and I don't like that. I prefer everything is done in an orderly way. And immigration and asylum. Asylum is 难民申请. In England, we don't do much asylum anymore because there's no money. In the UK, there's not much job opportunities or whatever, and China is getting rich, so you don't get asylum seekers anymore. Yeah, however, you get a lot of people being granted status to stay in the UK, 他拿到永居, and they apply for their direct families to come to the UK. And often they are refused. It's almost a rule. You always refuse them initially, and then they take this case to tribunal court, appellate court, and then 再上诉. And often they then get to get their family over. I'm not going to talk about private sector. I think this is just me sorting in, thinking maybe if we have the chance, time allowed, but I don't think we have time. And from Angie's lesson curriculum planning, I think you do cover this in the future. However, I'm going to give you my email address. Is it okay? Anything you're interested in the field, anything about interpreting a job, prospect or whatever, you are very welcome to contact me, and I will try my best to answer, if that makes sense. Yeah. Case study. This is a cannabis cultivation. However, I didn't do this one is because Angie already heard it, and I decided to give you the murder one, which is really gory. And cannabis, this is the way how they grow dahan. It smells really nice. It's like 雪茄, cigar. I'm not going to ask you, have you ever tried but it is something actually many countries are trying to legalize it, including in Britain. To be honest, it is as bad or as good as alcohol. It's medicinal. If you take it, it's actually quite relaxing. I'm not encouraging you. Maybe when you go to Amsterdam, you can have a go. This is being recorded. So this is the case I did, and it's a 6-week cannabis case in Leeds. And some Chinese doctors, 中医, all female doctors, and they bought some houses and flats in auction, 法拍屋, yeah? And then they converted the whole place into cannabis farms. And it's fantastic. How they found out is because it was a snowy day. And all the houses in the area all had white roofs apart from this one. And then they realized that they used like an infrared helicopter to detect now, and they could see something abnormal is happening in the house. They bypass a lot of like electricity because to grow cannabis is a tropical plant, so you need a lot of heat. You need to water them. They don't need to be fed much because I'm a gardener. I love gardening, but they do need a lot of water and control the temperature. So it's quite organic actually. It's quite And do you know which part do you smoke the marijuana plant? Do you know? You don't? Male plant or female plant? Anybody? You know? No? No? It's the flowers. It's the female part. And you dry it and you chop it. You roll it. Yeah. Last, this is the court in Britain. This is not a magistrate court. You can tell this is here are the jury, the jurors, 12 of them, the court, the barristers, the clerk, and these are the solicitors or legal assistants to them. These ones will be helping her or him, yeah, for barristers, 大律师. So must be a very, very big case to have this. This must be in Woolwich in London. Some of the courtrooms are fantastic. I don't know, Angie, you've been to these ones. They are beautiful. They are like 500 years old, or oak, 橡木, whatever, yeah, and beautifully carved. And you sit in a very small wooden chair, very creaky floor. It's fantastic. It's like visiting the national, so like a historical monument. Yeah. So sometimes I would look at the places. If I've never been to that court, I would take the case, no matter what case that is, and I just want to see what a courtroom is like. So it's quite, PSI can be very, very, very interesting. Right. This is me. Please use your to pick my brain. The picture is inserted by my husband, my dear husband. Any questions?
Yes.
Go on.
How to? There are so many because like I think the PSI is quite very difficult, it's complicated, and you will affect the consequence.
Yes.
So I think it's a very pressure.
Yes. High pressure environment.
And you did so many different fields.
Mm-hmm.
So how to like really good at to handle different like crime, and all the things.
Sure. How do you balance your work? Yeah. I think as an interpreter, often you juggle different fields. I learn, and that's life as well. For example, I'm a tapping person, I'm crumbling down and I need to massage for 3 days or whatever, counseling, and then it's not your type of job. This job, probably when you are there and then, is you're so busy in juggling with the glossary, vocabulary, how do I get the sentence right, how do I get the meanings across. You're so busy in doing your job. Often, you don't feel the emotion side until you're on the train or you're driving. I remember a few times I was driving home and I cried in the car because you're so, what do you say in Taiwanese? You're so, yeah, you're so uptight in that situation because you're so professional. And most people are very professional. And so when you go into your own private cocoon and environment, you start to. However, with interpreting, often you go home, you forget about it already. Unless it's a prolonged court case. Could be a week, could be 10 days, could be 2 weeks. Then you are always immersed in it. But most of the time, you don't really do much talking. A lot of time, you're taking turns. So often, you are there observing. So it's not as hard as you think. For me, the hardest is to break a news, say, unfortunately, you've got breast cancer. Unfortunately, your child has got leukemia. For me, it's medical, because it's something you're breaking such a bad news to people. Yeah. So
I think the question is because I think the criminal words. There's so different term you need to really.
You mean if you don't know the terms?
And so many different fields you need to know more
Sure.
professional words.
Sure.
And when you don't know or you are not really sure the sentence, and you will make a different effect.
Mhm.
How to do that?
Okay. Personally, as an interpreter, and you will learn more. You won't be stuck with a word. Word 猜字见招拆招 is not our job. You are looking at the context. Yeah. Often this is the case. Often I realize this is the case about whatever, murder or forgery. I will go home and look up these words. At the end of the day, you and I work in dictionary. You can always go, Mr. Barrister, can you just elaborate on the word? Didn't hear that word. Instead of you don't have to say, I don't know how to interpret that. Can you just repeat that sentence, especially the word? Yeah, and they will use plain language to explain to you. They never said it again. 不会说你还来当了 DBA 才考过了。No, you are the only person who can help them. They are always there trying to assist you. And they blame themselves. They always go, I don't beg your pardon, I shouldn't have used that word. Let me give you a plan, another word. So they help you out.
And you say you did a telephone interpreting, and how? Because you know if you don't know the word, but you need to answer very fast.
You never have to answer very fast. First, as an interpreter, the quicker your clients speak, the slower you are. In England, you can go to any court and sit there. It's open door policy. You can just sit there and observe. I used to observe because I wanted to know how courtroom function and what the whole procedure is like, the atmosphere. I used to sit there and you hear some really funny things. So it's interesting. So.
Like, do you have to know a lot of expression, local expression, like with a lot of background knowledge?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you want to know what they are going to express.
Mm-hmm. The other way around, court usually use very standard English. Often they use the same terms. In Australia, in New Zealand, in Canada, all the British systems, they use the same words, interestingly, because they need to be very concise. Yeah, need to be very exact. So they don't really play with words. Yeah, the other way around actually. And they use very plain language, that's for sure. And that is one of the essence that we use very plain language. Don't use very flowery words. Nobody would appreciate you using some fancy big words and nobody get what's the point in terms of communication. Cool. Yeah, go on.
So because after this 30 years, I think like China, Taiwan, we all speak English. So now I think, how about the market of interpreting and how to be more competitive?
Good. Very good question. Competitive. I was saying to last class, as Taiwanese, you might think in Taiwan the market is really small. Personally, I actually think you've got a huge market. First, because you are Taiwanese. We are in a very free world, free, non-controlled census, internet world compared to China. So you get all sorts. Anything you want to read, want to listen to, you get it. Yeah. I think the only thing is, in terms of your language, it's not your English needs improving. Your English is as good as any Chinese students, at your level. It's your Chinese. Because everybody has, in China, they have their own way of set phrases or collocations, and you need to pick up. Every day I listen to 凤凰新闻网, 经济半小时, because everything is to do with the economy. I listen to Radio 4, BBC. I watch NHK, and I watch Al Qaeda. Al Jazeera, Middle Eastern media. I usually will have to have it all rounded and to learn the set phrases or expressions. But I listen to a lot of Chinese radio programs on news. Yeah, it's not just to pick up I think pronunciation wise, as long as you watch your vowels， 你的元音要讲满。我刚刚也举例子了，不是哈哈哈，是好好好，好就是好，不是好，呀对，怎么对啊？这种字眼、虚词或什么的，对不对？是不是？你该卷舌要卷舌，你不该卷舌你就不要卷舌。那我通常是 shadow，you need to shadow some whoever。像我觉得赵薇讲话很好听，你就 shadow 她啊，你不见得要 shadow 这些那个 news readers， 不必 news reader 有点像太样板了。我反而喜欢 shadow 的是这一些，我觉得他讲的比较平顺、温和。那赵薇的我觉得很好听，我 shadow 她。So you do shadowing, don't you? Oh, eventually you learn shadowing. Shadowing in the end， 你先 word for word 尽量的跟，再来就是你就要开始那个 narrow streamline， 你不要每个字都跟，因为不好跟，那你就要开始，只是把它 shadow 它的意义，取它的 keyword. That's how I practice. So I continuously improving my Chinese, sadly, because I don't live in a Chinese-speaking environment. I find it easier to speak English than, in a way, in Chinese. So you improve your language accordingly. But every day, 2 hours, at least 2个小时的自我学习。耳朵，我的年纪大了，我怕我这个嘴巴笨了，所以听讲听跟讲 forever. Yeah. Then I won't get Alzheimer's. Okay, it's been a pleasure, guys. Really nice to thank you for being so attentive and ask so many questions. But if you have further questions, my email is daisydark@hotmail.co.uk. And thank you very much.